These are the seats from the SunRay. You can see they're on platforms or boxes that somebody made. These are not original. They're just 12 by 36 inch by 9 inch high plywood. And they screwed the seats in this way, and they had some L brackets to screw them to the floor. Just those can be improved upon. This is the cockpit of the SunRay, and the seats go here. They're back-to-back seats, forward-facing, rear-facing. There's one over on the port side here. The original plywood boxes supported the seats, and they were homemade and not very good. I removed those, of course. One of the choices I had, easiest choice, would have been just to take 1/2-inch plywood and glass it both sides and install it. That's what I chose to do for the front structure. You'll see that later. I rebuild the front structure, and that's just one of the panels here. Quick and easy, 1/2-inch plywood had the strength to raise and hold the consoles and was great. What I wanted to do back here was do something a little bit different. And I'll show you what with these here. These are not glued, but this is what I'll be doing. Okay, I chose to go with a sandwich construction block there. This is a section that goes in at the bow. You see an area here. There's going to be a little block to help for fastening. Oops, little 1x1 block. That's going to go right here, like so. Okay, that's clear through the camera, yes. And we've got another one. This is the same thing. It goes here. And these are not glued yet. They will be glued with epoxy, the foam. It's just an R5 Owens Corning foam. This is a PVC trim board. PVC is pretty compatible with epoxy, so that will just help with the connection, something anchor for screws to put these together. The glue and the fiberglass that I plan to put on the outside are going to give the actual strength, but there'll be a couple screws to hold from each board to hold these together. And you see this is a big sandwich, and we'll go like so. So you can see the seat box there. I'll put a plywood top on it. It'll be a very nice compartment. This will all be tabbed. It'll be fiberglassed on the faces. It will be tabbed at all the junctions. And let's see, there's going to be, I'll cut a porthole here, and I'm not sure if I'll put a door on it or not. I might put a sliding door, but I think I just may leave it open, and that's where you can stuff life jackets and loose stuff. Now it's time to do some preparations for gluing, and then the actual gluing with a thickened epoxy mixture. Okay, these blocks are going to be screwed through with stainless steel screws here, through here, and then the other piece of lapping plywood be screwed through there. So I'm going to pre-drill and countersink those holes. This is polystyrene, expanded polystyrene. This is a lower density. I think this is 150 series, which means 15 pounds per square inch. And it's good enough for what I'm doing. If you're really using this as core material without the plywood and we're just using it with glass, you're best to go with something like the Kusa products and other things that are meant as a foam core. But you can get this building material here. Instead of 150 series, you can go up to, I believe, 1,000. These guys sell it 1,000 series, which means 100 psi. It would have some good shear strength to use as a sandwich, but there'd be limits. You probably are not going to use it as a stringer or as a transom core, but maybe for something else. In this case, I'm just making cabinets for seats, and I'm using plywood. it's just fine. I'm using epoxy with this. If you're using polyester, be careful what you use with it, because as I understand it, polyester resin would dissolve this stuff. But so know your products. These are some of the pieces ready to prime. I've mixed up right here just to start. This is about just over 300 grams of epoxy. These pieces have all been primed, as well as these pieces. We used probably a little over 200, maybe 250, 200 grams, 250 grams of the mix. What's remaining, I'm going to add some thickener to, some adhesive powder, basically the aerosol Cabasil. I just picked up a new bucket today, UPS it came, and we'll mix that powder in, and then I'll do a little bit of bonding, and definitely there's going to be another 3 or 4, maybe 400 grams more to mix to make adhesive for the foam. Okay, I have a mask on. Put a little bit of this powder, aerosol Cabasil, into the epoxy, stir it in. It blows around a lot. I am going to make some noise. I'm going to turn on a vacuum extractor here, or a dust extractor. Okay, there we are. Okay. This small amount of adhesive, I will start by using to put these PVC corner blocks in place. Pre-drilled and countersunk. So that is going to go like so. Since it's just a small area, I'm just smearing it on. I'm not going to use the spreader. I'll use the spreader for the larger areas, but for these right now, I will put them like so. I'm going to pour out some onto here. That's more than enough. I'll use the fine spreader here. Put some up the edges here. Okay. Now the piece of foam, I have to find it. This is port forward. Okay, this is the piece right here. I didn't bother priming this. It's a fairly smooth surface and it doesn't absorb. The foam is closed cell, it doesn't absorb. So I'm just squishing it, working it into place. Flush it up on the one side. The bottom side is what's going to sit down on the deck. So this sandwich is ready to go. I will put some weights on it once I get the rest of these assembled. Time Time for a test fitting. Here are the foam and plywood panels. They're not glassed yet, they're just glued together. We've got the corner piece for PVC. And I just line them up with my markings on the floor here. Yep, that fits. This one fits back here. That's right. And we've got this panel here, and you see it's got this end that fits in like so. Oops. Now I see one thing. I made a mistake. It's something that I planned on early on, but I failed to follow through and correct this issue. I forgot about it until I saw after. And you'll notice here how these, my corner blocks are, how these fit together. I meant to shorten this piece up by 1/4 inch there, so this would fit in, and now we have a gap. So what I'm going to do instead of trying to cut the plywood after, I'm just going to move this whole piece outboard 1/4 inch from where it was intended, and in here I've got some foam 1/4 inch pieces. They will be glued in. So when I won't push it in all the way. When I glue this joint, glue and screw, I'll insert that spacer and I'll be putting a couple screws in here. I'll do that on both ends. Now, that's going to make a pretty sturdy seat box. It's going to be tabbed in and glassed. And the question is, why did I bother going to the trouble of doing this? I could have just used 1/2 inch plywood. 1/2 inch plywood would have the same strength as 2 1/4 inch pieces. You know, arguably I could have made that inner one 1/8 of an inch, and it would still be strong enough. Well, what the foam does stabilize those thinner skins, and it makes it rigid in this direction. As far as if I were to take this and step on it like a beam, it's much stiffer in that direction. But for this application for the seats, this extra stiffness in this direction doesn't really matter. The stiffness is in this direction, compression, I mean, for the seat. So the real reason is, well, it does add some flotation, yeah. I just kind of like it. It's something I wanted to do. Did it on another boat where I actually had significant flotation. I used 3-inch foam for all my walls and my seats and my lockers and so on. In this case, I just wanted to do it because I think it's kind of neat. It costs more, epoxy, but it's something I like. A long time ago, about 40 years ago, I did a thesis on foam, glass, and epoxy composites. I did some specimens and tested them for bending and did different things, looked at delamination and so on. But what I could have done if I really wanted to be edgy here is I would have just used the foam, laid out the foam, and then just glassed. I would have done, say, 3 layers each side, possibly 4 on the outside, and just made it all glass. It would be quite strong. It'd be pretty expensive too, but it'd be very strong and light. But as it is, it's just something neat to do. One good thing about the plywood under the glass gives good dent resistance, just like on the floor. The glass provides some stiffness and tension back and forth this way, but this way the wood backs it up and gives it some dent resistance if you kick it or drop something heavy on it. Okay, let's put this together. Enough talking, and I'll put this together. Now these are the seat boxes. They're just laying in place. And that's the approximate position. I'm going to double check. These are the positions that the original ones were in. It's about time I did this. It's just a test fitting with the seats on top of the box before I've pinned it in position. And from what I've determined there, I'm going to move the box back 2 inches. That's going to help me a little bit as far as knee room. I've also made a change in plans as far as storage. I'm not going to cut a hole in here and glass it. I think it's going to be far more effective, efficient, and elegant for me to put a stainless steel hinge at the front and build a structure underneath and just have the whole thing hinge up. And I'll have some blocks that help key it into the box structure. So there is a gap here that will be covered and glassed. And I'll also work out some drainage so that it can drain in case something gets inside it. Okay, that's the planning at this state in time. Put the piece together. This is the prime piece of plywood. In this case, it's not exposed really to water. It's not pressure treated or anything. Some 1/2-inch plywood. This has been primed. This ratty wood and any old attachment blocks were taken off. Keeping these upholsteries in reasonable condition. It's got some mildew on it and so on. And these are folding seats, but I'm not going to have them folded. I'm going to have them fixed together, and let me get this into view here. I'll use some stainless screws here. They're only 1 inch long. They won't poke through. I've got some holes you see in here. Those are vent holes to match some vent holes in the bottom of the cushions. I guess that's just to let the cushions breathe in and out when you sit on them. And this one is done. I'll show you what I intend to do. Here's this is left over. This is free to this project. It's leftover piano hinge I had for the doors for the HOBO houseboat. I had to use I think a 5-foot long hinge that left me, I forget what it was, but anyhow, I've got some hinges left over. And these guys, stainless hinges, are going to go under here, and this whole seat assembly will tip up so I can get it in the storage. These are ready to do some final little assembly bits, and then they'll be glassed into the hull. This is a little bit of final assembly. I was going to do this after this was installed to the hull, but I thought, no, it's going to be easier to line this up and do it here on the bench. This is the starboard seat, captain seat basically, and rear facing seat. The captain seat structure is upside down. These are some supports. You'll see what they're for. They're actually to support the other side of the seat. So it'll be resting on there and on this. And there's some blocks here so it's not just relying on glass. These are, these are some blocks. So actually this one goes here. It's got the little bevel there. And this one goes here. I'm assembling it like so because that way this will be flush with this. That's how I want it. I will do this assembly to both. I also have another piece. Another piece. And you'll see what this is for later. It's a support piece. It's going to follow the hull. And I'm going to glass in place. I've got to cut a little bit of a bevel on the edge there. But it's going to be like so. Glued in place. And it's going to bend. It's going to bend to the hull. And that's going to be a support. There's going to be a filler gap plate between here and here. you'll see more about that. And there it is. Okay, I've got my angle finder here. Take an average of this angle here. That's pretty good. Close enough is good enough. So there we go. Let's go to the table saw. Okay, a little crowded in the garage. I've got too many things going at the moment, sort of different stages of completion. So I have to move things around every time I want to use something and unplug something I'm not using. And I get dust on other stuff. Okay, you can see, oops, the bevel on one side, and it's relatively straight. This beveled side goes down. Oops. You see how it sits there? This will be flushed up to this surface and this to here, and just put in place. When it goes into the hull, it'll be bowed out a little bit. I've mixed in a little bit of the Ursil Cabasil, and it's now just sort of like a bit of a gruel, a paste. So I just mixed it to that consistency to use as a glue. And it just fills gaps, and just straight epoxy. Wouldn't take into account any undulations or anything like that. So. I thicken this up quite a bit. Instead of gruel, it's now like mashed potatoes. I'm done here. I'll go to the starboard assembly, the port assembly, and by tomorrow this will be set up enough I can handle it and put it in place, and we'll do some tabbing. We'll tab it to the hull and to the floor. These seat box assemblies are still a little tacky, but they're strong enough I can move them, and I'm going to be putting them in place today. So first of all, I have to clean the glass with some acetone and a rag. I vacuumed this yesterday, but I'll just use the whisk to clean up any crud that's just gotten in the way. Here are the tapes for the seats in the middle of the boat, 6-inch tapes. Okay, this is sat overnight. It's tacky. The slow epoxy is still very tacky. I can indent the fillets with my fingers. They're still tacky, and I sort of pre-primed it. I'm going to put 6-inch tapes around the outside and around the inside. I've got them here. I don't know if you can see. They're all wet out. And to start, I'll freshen up the areas where I'll lay them. And I'll do that as I go, I guess. I'm going to do the interior first. This is good. I've got heat, some electric heat on in the garage. I could open the vents too for the furnace to heat it. But I've got just enough heat in here to maintain about 60 Fahrenheit. It's comfortable enough to work in, and I'm not too concerned about, I don't really want this stuff to cure quickly, because I want time to come back to it the next day and not have to sand or do anything like that. And this slow epoxy and cool temperatures is sort of ideal, I guess. Okay, tabbing is done on both seat boxes here, on the outside and, hard to see, but on the inside as well. The last thing I will do today is cut from whole cloth 12-inch strips to go around the 3 sides of the box. It will lap over the tab there, and it will just weatherproof and strengthen the seat boxes. That will be it for major glassing on the inside of the boat. There will be some sanding and finishing and maybe some touch-up. I have some further sanding to do down here. I put some filler in and rough spots, and I need to do some more sanding. Okay, the seat boxes have been fully glassed. This is it. The inside and the outside have been fully covered, and later I'll be epoxy painting those.